Welcome to a special Transmissions alt mode where we talk to people that write. Tonight, Charles and Jeremy welcome back Brandon Easton, writer on episodes 4 through 6 of Transformers War for Cybertron Siege, as well as an upcoming Ultra Magnus arc of Transformers Galaxies. Join us as we talk to Brandon about what went into the writing of Siege and try to get some hints into his Galaxy storyline.
Welcome to a special Transmissions alt mode, another War for Cybertron Siege focused special episode. We're excited to welcome Brandon Easton back to Transmissions. He's living the dream of many Transformers fans, having written 3 episodes of the new War for Cybertron Siege Netflix show, and is writing a new Ultra Magnus story coming soon in the Transformers Galaxies comic series. He's also had the chance to put his mark on the comic continuation of the original Star Trek in Star Trek Year 5 and tell a Spider-Man story in IDW's Marvel Action Spider-Man series. We can't wait to see what else he's got in store for us. Brandon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be back. It's been a while.
Yeah. How you doing?
Good overall. I mean, I can't really complain. I mean, things are going real well career-wise, and I live in Southern California where it's, generally still nice and sunny. It's been very hot lately, but beyond that, everything else has been pretty cool in terms of life.
Yeah, I mean, also it's a little bit different circumstances now that we're talking to you. I mean, how's life in the pandemic?
Well, I mean, when you're a writer, hold on for 1 second.
Okay.
Just wanted to turn down my fan. It was getting a lot of feedback. I would say that life in the pandemic for a writer isn't all that different because most of the time I spend, sitting in a room or sitting in an office hunched over a computer. And now during the pandemic, I'm sitting in a room or empty office, hunched over a computer. So it's not that different for me. I mean, I do miss being able to, just get up and go to a movie or a museum or to a bar or whatever. But, until we get this under control, I'm completely happy just taking it easy and, staying socially distant and being as safe as possible when I do have to go outside on important errands. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know working remotely myself, I'm used to occasionally going and working from Starbucks or something. And that's been the biggest change, I think, just
right.
Working on stuff kind of to be around people. Not possible now.
Yeah, so like you mentioned, the writing is kind of at the beginning of most projects. So this really hasn't affected your current and upcoming projects in the entertainment industry, or how has it had some effect?
I would say that it has had more effect on live action TV development, like 1 hour and half-hour shows. A lot of the reality programs are still getting done because they're figuring out a way to do it around the social distancing mandates. For me, it's only slowed down hiring for TV shows, like 1 hour shows, live action dramas and things of that nature. It hasn't really impacted animation or comics on the same level, although the comic book industry took a massive hit this year because comic book stores were not open for most of this year. So beyond that stuff, I would say, yeah, things are pretty tough, but the industry, there's billions of dollars on the line, so they're figuring out a way to make stuff happen.
Right. So let's get into War for Cybertron Siege. So I know this you've been working on this for a long time. It's nice to finally see it. We've all got the chance to see it. Everyone's got the chance to see it now. So I think we'll go into spoiler territory here since I think everyone binged it pretty quickly. So
if you haven't seen it,
right?
Not our fault.
Yeah. So what did you think of the reaction that fans have given to the series? It seems pretty positive.
It's interesting you asked that. I would say that people who remember Transformers Generation 1 from 1984, onward, particularly, the first run of the cartoon up until season 3 and also season 4, which was the Headmasters, that generation who watched it but hasn't watched any Transformers stuff since then, they're in love with it all because it's given them a piece of their childhood back. However, I tend to spend a lot more time on like the hardcore fan sites, and a lot more of them seem unhappy for some. I don't understand why there's so many hardcore unhappy fans. Whereas, I mean, unhappy hardcore fans, whereas the casual Transformers fans are like jumping through the roof with glee, and they're showing it to their kids, and even though it's not really meant for kids, but they're showing it to their kids. So I would say that, I would say it's like a 85-15% type of thing, 85% to 15%. 85 is very positive, but the really overwhelming negative 15% is coming from the hardcore fandom that I've seen online. And I will always remain perplexed by that. I mean, I have my theories about why that's the case, but it's just, I've just been trying to stay as positive as humanly possible, that there's still new Transformers stories that are high quality, that are on Netflix of all places, that we can see anytime we want now. So I am very happy, and I've been very, very, so I've been strongly supported by the 85% of fandom who's just happy to have some new Transformer stories. I'll put it like that.
Great. Yeah. I mean, we all enjoyed it, and I think we're of course, I would definitely put the Transmissions in the hardcore fan category, but I think
Right.
I think what we've seen is that Transformers runs such a large spectrum of different themes and ideas that there's room for any kind of story you want to tell. And I think
Right.
it's always, as long as the story is good and compelling and the characters are compelling, I think it can be successful. And I think with Siege, it's been, at least for me, I was very happy with it.
Well, thank you. I mean, it was a blast being, in the development process, and being able to write the scripts that I got to write. I will say this much before we jump into more of Siege. Anytime you have a multi-generational franchise, whether it be Star Trek, Star Wars, Transformers, Doctor Who, the particular franchises that everyone seems to be angry about these days, I just feel that you can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
And that when, I get a lot of heat for being a Superman fan, because I'm a huge fan of the Superman comics and of the media. And I will say this much, that it has a lot to do with where you enter a franchise. You know what I mean? I entered the Superman franchise with Christopher Reeve in 1978, the Richard Donner movie, Superman 1, right? So that's my memory of Superman. But there are people who remember it from George Reeves back in the 50s, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there are people who remember the radio dramas before that, during World War II. So I feel that some Transformers fans are so stuck between 1984 and 88 that they can't get past it. Like, people were complaining about Peter Cullen and Frank Welker not being there, but you have to understand something. That's not free. Frank Welker and Peter Cullen do not work for free. And then they have high quotes. So would we rather have Optimus and Megatron talking and the animation be horrible, or would we rather have really beautiful animation with a compelling story and really good voice actors who are not Peter Cullen and Frank Welker? And I say that as somebody who is like those two are like my golden, my holy duo of voice acting in the world. So I understand why we couldn't get them, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think there's any project you're gonna have to make trade-offs, and I think the animation and the quality of the overall product, just as it comes together, is what matters. And yeah, I mean, there's always things you can nitpick and have criticisms about, and I think everyone is entitled to have those criticisms, and
sure.
I think just but I think the overall product outweighs the whatever smaller issues there might be. So
yeah, and make no mistake, I'm not even suggesting that people aren't entitled to their opinions. I just feel that, as somebody who's been a part of various science fiction fandoms since like the earliest of 80s, like 81, 82, I've seen a level of nitpicking and dissatisfaction that goes beyond normal educated critique. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there are things that happen and things that are said that are so incredibly bizarre and so incredibly like just the opposite of joy. I criticize a lot of things, but like, for example, The Rise of Skywalker, a lot of people hated it, but I had a lot of fun, and I know what flaws are in The Rise of Skywalker, but I was just so happy to be sitting in a Star Wars movie one last time, with Luke Skywalker and all the guys I grew up with and ladies I grew up with being in it, So I totally hear you with the critiques. Everyone is entitled, but I feel that there's been a growth of a fan mentality that is incapable of experiencing joy. And I don't know, that's what blows my mind,
Well, I mean, I think the Transformers fandom in particular has been rife with that since Beast Wars.
Oh, good God.
Since the first thing that was not G1.
I tell you, I used to be one of those fans until, and I don't know if I told you this story the first time we ever talked, but I went to Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con in 1999. That was the first time I'd ever been. And there was a Beast Wars panel, because this is right when Beast Machines was about to drop, right? And I met the showrunner one of the showrunners of Beast Wars is a guy named Bob Skir, S-K-I-R. And I had all this stuff to say. I was like sitting in the audience fuming, ready to ask my hardcore question. And I did. And Bob Skir, I asked him something about, why it didn't resemble G1 and blah, blah, blah. And he just said, look, Hasbro hired me to work with Mainframe to make this show. And what they want is what they get, because ultimately this is all to sell toys. And I didn't even think of that, and that changed my entire opinion on fan critique, because I realized that there were decisions made that had nothing to do with fans. It was all business. And then when I understood that, I was able to drop some of my animosity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, let's go back into super positive talk, because we want to pull back the curtain a little bit on Siege.
Sure.
And dig into all the themes behind it. So, I mean, just start off, how did you get involved with the project?
Well, it was very interesting, because I got an email out of nowhere asking me if I wanted to meet with, at the time, Machinima, which was a former app. Entertainment app that was created by Warner Brothers Entertainment, right? And I didn't know what it was about. And I said, sure, why not? And it turned out to be Transformers. And I was completely blown away, because, and I know I was not the first person on that list. I might have been like 15th or 16th on that list, but for whatever reason, all those people in front of me decided not to do it or couldn't do it. And so I just stepped up to the plate. And I met with FJ DeSanto. I met with a couple other people. And next thing you know, they sent me all the material and I signed the contract. I mean, it was a matter of happening within 2 weeks. It blew my mind. I was stunned.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you got to write episodes 4 through 6 with Gavin Hignight. And what was the writing process like?
Well, it's funny, because I didn't even realize he was giving a co-writer credit on the episodes I wrote, because when I written them, I wrote them alone. But I'm assuming that, in watching it now, because I wasn't privy to the editing process or the production process at all as a writer. So I had no idea what changes they made. I had no idea what they added or whatever. So when watching it, I would say the great majority of what I wrote is there. But clearly there had been some edits done, and I'm assuming that Gavin wrote those edits, which is why his name was on. I mean, I don't mean this in a negative sense, but when I first saw the credits and saw Brandon Easton and Gavin Hignight, I was just like, why is his name? At first, I was like, why is his name there? Because I didn't see too many changes from what I'd actually done. So, but clearly, he had the opportunity to go in and make some changes that Netflix or Rooster Teeth or whoever else wanted to save money, because it looked like there was a lot of cost-cutting measures, to be honest.
Okay.
So, but it wasn't, and I said that wasn't a negative thing, because I did speak with Gavin a couple of times during the process, and he was very cool. And I know he was working on Cyberverse at the time, so I didn't get a lot of Cyberverse input from him, or there wasn't a lot of cross discussions between Cyberverse and War for Cybertron Siege. But, obviously, he definitely had a lot to do with the development of Cyberverse and some of those ideas being implanted in War for Cybertron.
Okay. So basically, when you talked to FJ DeSanto, he gave you kind of like the overall outline, and then said, okay, you write these 3 parts here. And then and then you turned in the scripts. Was that the extent?
Yeah, I mean, to make it even simpler, like we get a packet of information, When anytime you write on any show, animated, live act, whatever the show is, you just get like kind of a packet, a Bible, just who everybody is, what the world is like, what's supposed to happen. And, episodes, I was originally hired, I believe, for episodes only 4 and 5. I think someone else was supposed to do episode 6. But I think that we were running out of time. And then I had written basically kind of things a very specific way, as you've seen at the end of episode 5, so that I guess they didn't believe anyone would come in and be able to kind of capture the tone that I already established. And again, we were running out of time. So they said, hey, write episode 6, just wrap it up. And that's what happened, in a nutshell. Okay.
So what was the most challenging aspect of developing the story arc along those 3 episodes?
I mean, when you come in the middle of anything, that's always going to be challenging as a writer, even when it's extremely structured as it was. I mean, I have to give credit to everyone involved because the outline for the entire first season was extremely well organized and extremely well structured, which made it relatively easier to come in and pick up the baton that was left with at the end of episode 3. So that's what it was really like. It was challenging in the sense that you want to match the voice of what FJ and George Christic and Gavin had done before I had, and when I came in, it would tell me, look, make sure that it hits these beats, but put some of your voice in there too as a fan. And I think you can feel that in episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Cool. So what was your favorite character or your favorite character arc in these episodes?
Well, that's a good one because I liked everybody. I didn't get the chance to really spend a lot of time with Alita 1 as I would have liked. However, Megatron is my favorite character, and this is the Megatron that I always had in my head when I thought about the character as he was presented over the years, because in the original show, he would sometimes be very vicious, but sometimes very stupid and cowardly, which is bizarre, being the leader of the Decepticons, to give up all the time. I mean, I understand why a kid's show would have the bad guy be that way, but as the lore expanded after the show ended, I always felt that Megatron should be a lot harsher, a lot colder, a lot smarter, and a lot less afraid of anything at all. He should never back down. And that's kind of the Megatron that I wanted to portray, especially someone who had a legitimate beef against the Autobots and a legitimate beef about his station in life on Cybertron before the Decepticons decided to take it over. I mean, that's a story within itself. I mean, being a former gladiator, being somebody who worked in pits as almost slave labor, that's the Megatron that I wanted to really get into. And I think we all did a fantastic job of fleshing him out. So I would say that Megatron really was a character that needed that more than anybody else, throughout the whole, because everybody else had kind of a very defined personality, whether you're talking about Starscream or Prime or Prowl or Jazz or Wheeljack. But Megatron always just seemed to be ill-defined in my mind. And I think we solved that problem.
Yeah, I was surprised that you make Megatron. He is cold and ruthless and he doesn't back down, but he also has a tiny bit of sympathy for his enemies. I was a little bit surprised by that he's he doesn't go straight to I want to annihilate everyone. I think he particularly feels like, well, you pushed me to this point. Like I wanted to bring you along with me, but you've pushed me to the point where I have no choice left but to completely destroy you. And it was very interesting seeing Megatron get pushed and build himself up to that point where he starts at the point where he's willing to make peace, where peace is you surrender to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. So, I mean, you mentioned this a little bit about the backstory, and that was also something interesting because we just get hints of it in the show. But in particular, Alpha Trion looms large as this influence. It seems like he was a mentor to Megatron, Optimus, and Ultra Magnus all together. And some kind of we get a hint that something happened where Megatron betrayed Alpha Trion, and then that started the current conflict. And was this more fully fleshed out in the backstory, or is that still something that's was in the outline but wasn't going to get pushed any further in the story, or what we saw in the show.
Yeah, this is going to sound crazy, but to be absolutely honest, and I'm not making this up, I honestly do not remember, because that was back in 2018, believe it or not, when we were writing this, when I was writing my stuff.
Yeah.
So to be absolutely honest with you, I actually don't remember if Alpha Trion's backstory was fully developed in the War for Cybertron Siege series. I mean, I have no idea, because I'm not working on Earthrise or Kingdom, so I have no idea if that's going to be fleshed out more later. Which I have no idea. I would guess it might be, but honestly, we just had a couple of bullet points, and it's very vague, just to bring up Alpha Trion and its connection to the Trion protocols and what would happen if people died and blah 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 and Allspark. I mean, it was very, very, very threadbare. So I'm assuming they might. I'm guessing this is all speculation on my part now. I'm guessing they might get into that more later, but I have no idea, to be honest with you.
Okay. So also one of the, Transformers in G1, very few people died, but in this show we see a lot of death. I mean, it's a war story, and we do get a lot of generic bots get killed, but also some of the some of the notable characters, some of the named characters. We get Skywarp, Moonracer, and of course Ultra Magnus gets a pretty huge death scene here. So were there any restrictions to killing off characters, or was that was already in the outline and you just had to kind of come up with the way to bring them off, or were there any characters in particular that you were taking out in the story, or was that all?
Let me think. I remember there being specific characters who did, get wiped out during the course of the episodes. There was one character I personally wrote getting killed that I thought was going to be killed in the final episode, but when watching it, that did not occur. So I had the green light to kill somebody pretty big, but clearly that didn't happen, and I'm guessing against his budgetary. It has to be budgetary or some other reason. But I had a really big death sequence plotted out extremely, I wrote the hell out of that sequence because I thought it would be the piece de la resistance of the final episode, and they obviously cut it out. So yes, okay. There were bullet points about who could be killed and who had to survive, and some of those people clearly died, and some of them did not. And then the ones who I got a green light, the one I got a green light to kill is still alive. So maybe, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to decide to do.
So the bullet points were who could be killed, not who must be killed. And it was
I think that we had the option to kill certain people, but I think it was the reason why I can't answer 100% because I don't know if the mandate came down from FJ or if it came down from Hasbro. You know what I mean? Because Hasbro always has say on this type of stuff, and the production team, above me, has a lot of say on this stuff. So I'm not 100% sure of who said who could die. I just remember being like, okay, this person's going to get killed and that person's going to get killed. And by the time I came on board, Skywarp was already dead. So, I was like, wow, they killed Skywarp, and then we went from there. It was like, it's so crazy, to be honest.
Moonracer in particular, I was kind of shocked because that's when all the zombies are attacking Prime and his Autobots, and she just gets ripped into pieces. And I was like, whoa, she's going to be all right, though, right? She's going to be all right. Oh, no, she's not going to be all right. That was that was a little bit shocking.
Mm-hmm.
So were there any characters that you would have liked to expand further that you didn't get a chance to? I know you mentioned you got to fully flesh out Megatron. Was there anyone else that you wanted to expand but didn't have the space to?
Yeah, we didn't have, that was another thing. We didn't have a lot of physical on-screen time to burn, you know what I mean? So much had to just go to the main narrative of them getting off of Cybertron. We're getting to Allspark and then getting off of Cybertron. So I would have probably liked to have spent more time with Mirage. I would have liked to have spent more time with Sound Blaster's operation. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Mirage definitely would. I would have loved to explore a lot more of his motivations and what he was up to. And of course, I would have liked more time with Optimus Prime. But again, I wanted to have more of his future self kind of show through. But again, we were running out of time. I mean, all we had to do was get them off of that planet, and that was the main thrust of Siege.
Yeah, yeah.
And Sound Blaster was an interesting surprise when we saw him come up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and that mercenary faction symbol that we don't know much about yet. So I guess we'll find out more about that later.
And truth be told, I don't know anything about it. I didn't know about that mercenary logo until I saw it on the first Friday on Hasbro Pulse with those new characters coming in Earthrise. I didn't even know what that thing was. So that shocked, because that wasn't. Well, I mean, it wasn't in my script, so I didn't even know about that. That's something that they obviously kept way under wraps.
He was just a character.
Yeah. So one thing that I thought was really cool in the story was like this virus that Shockwave releases, and how I liked how the decision for Megatron's decision to release this virus, and they make a point that, well, the planet is all basically supported by mostly Autobot infrastructure. So if you release this virus, you're hurting the Decepticons as well as the Autobots. And I really thought that was interesting, and he still went ahead and made that decision. And that was a really cool, really interesting moment for me. And one question I had was with Bumblebee having the protocols like in himself, how did the virus jump from like the computer systems back into Bumblebee? Or is the assumption that all the bots are kind of like linked up to the computers, or is it because in the story they're escaping from Sound Blaster's place, and then he's automatically shut down from the virus or whatever.
Man, I'm trying to remember how this went, because I'll say this much, some things definitely changed from my original script, especially that was episode 5. So there were quite a few things that changed about Bumblebee's infiltration of the mercenary camp and the crime syndicates and all that stuff. The way it was originally written, I just felt that they said certain Autobots, sort of like, how the Matrix chooses somebody, like it was like the protocols were placed, would find the right robot, at the time. And at the time, that was Bumblebee. That's the basic explanation I can give, because it wasn't really well defined to begin with.
So basically, it's just meant to be assumed that the virus traveled the same protocols same things that the Alphatron protocols did. So they found Bumblebee, so the virus also went to Bumblebee.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Something like that. Yeah.
It was just a MacGuffin killer.
And I mean, I liked the last episode really brought everything to a big climax. You had the battles and everything. We did get the big reveal at the end with Omega Supreme. I thought that was that was really great. We also got a little glimpse of Astro Train, but it seemed like he didn't really get to do much in the episode. Was more written for him that they just maybe they didn't have the budget to do, or.
No, I mean, I didn't even know Astro Train was going to be, that was a character model. I didn't know that was going to show up.
Okay.
I mean, I'm just like, wow. I mean, there was a lot of stuff I saw that surprised me, because they did add in things, obviously, in post, way after the scripts were written and rewritten. And, I had no Astro Train. If I can remember, I don't remember writing anything for Astro Train at all.
Okay. Yeah, but it was nice to see how you linked Omega Supreme to the Autobots and gave him kind of a little bit of agency, because it was cool to see in episode 4, I think, when Optimus Prime goes to visit the Guardians and how they basically refuse him. But then as he walks away, you see just a shadow of one of the Guardians watching Prime as he leaves, and I guess the assumption is that's Omega Supreme, and he's actually deciding for himself that no, I'm not going to go along with the rest of my brothers, and I'm going to work with the Autobots, and I like that payoff in the last episode.
Yeah, so did I. I mean, when I saw that in the trailer, because I knew what was coming, I was like, "Good God, that looks absolutely beautiful." I had no idea it was going to look like that, so that was really awesome.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, everyone is. Yeah, I think we're really happy with Siege, and I just rewatched it again this weekend because we're doing our review for the parts that you've written later on in an upcoming show. So we're looking forward to that. But I wanted to also shift because that's not the only Transformers thing you're working on. So you're also working on an Ultra Magnus story in Transformers Galaxies.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about that because it's Ultra Magnus, of course, had a big part in Siege, and now in this story in Galaxies, it's slightly different. It's way back in the past. It's pre-war. So I'm wondering where Ultra Magnus is in this pre-war Cybertron, where we don't even really have Autobots and Decepticons yet. So what is he doing at this point?
Well, I can't get too much into that, but let's see. Well, he's on a mission in deep space, far away from Cybertron, and the setup is that they get a message. And if you're reading the IDW main Transformers line, this takes place before the current issues, but it's going to kind of merge toward the end of the arc with what's happening currently in the IDW main Transformers comic. Okay. So he's off, and like I was saying, it's kind of set. The story is triggered when they get a message when Ultra Magnus gets a message about Alpha Trion gone missing. So Alpha Trion is still alive at this point and somewhere out in space, and he goes on a mission to find him, and what he finds leads him to understand that the Cybertron that he left is not the Cybertron that he's going to return to. Because when he leaves, he's still kind of living in, I guess would be the Cybertronian equivalent of the American 1950s, where people think it was much better than it was, depending on who you were. But he imagines it as this beautiful place that, it was some wars, and we fought and we suffered, but everything is going to be okay because people like me are out here protecting Cybertron, and people like me are all over Cybertron doing the right thing. And people around him, particularly the villains he encounters, are basically like, dude, you have no idea what's going on back on Cybertron, do you? You've been out here way too long, And that's kind of the gist of the story that I could reveal so far.
Okay. And it's a 3-issue story with art by Andrew Griffith, I believe.
Absolutely, and he's been outdoing himself as he usually does with the artwork. There's some stuff there that, especially at the end of issue 11 and throughout 12, that I think people are going to be blown away by. I mean, I was looking at the art and I was just like, good God, man, this is just absolutely gorgeous, and I can't wait for folks to see it, because if anybody was upset with the lack of Ultra Magnus action and adventure in Siege, you're going to get way more than you bargained for in the Galaxies 3-issue arc.
Awesome. So
yeah.
So how did the collaboration process go with Andrew on this comic? Did you just write the script and hand it over to him, or was there some back and forth and like as he's drawing the pages?
Yeah, I would say that it's a typical comic book pipeline. IDW hires a writer does the scripts with the editors, and then the editor sends it to the hires and then sends it to the art team. I know Andrew anyway, but we didn't have a lot of preliminary development for this. It was like they asked me who I wanted, and I said, well, if I can get Andrew Griffith, that'd be awesome. And they were like, okay, fine. And they went and got Andrew to do the 3-issue arc.
Oh, cool. Yeah, you guys, you guys worked on a Kickstarter together, right? Or was that, am I misremembering that?
No, you're absolutely correct. It was for my original graphic novel concept called Dominion's Light, which is like a sci-fi fantasy hybrid. Mm-hmm. And Andrew had came up to me years ago, almost 2 years ago, and he basically said, I'd like to work on something other than robots someday. And I said, well, when I can get the money to afford you, I will hire you to do my science fiction fantasy, universe thing. And, time went by, and then his schedule opened up, and I had the money, and I had the money to at least start to pay him. And then the rest of it, we got through Kickstarter. So thank God, and it's been fantastic. I mean, he's been able to bring my visions to life, little by little, because we've both been crazy busy, and the pandemic has gotten in the way of production. Mm-hmm. But what he's been able to pull out of that art has just been extraordinary. I've been very pleased.
Awesome. Yeah. So with the Ultra Magnus story arc, are there any similarities that with the Ultra Magnus in your comic that compares to the one you wrote in Siege, or is it? I mean, they're pretty much at opposite ends of their lifetime, but did you try to bring kind of a similar personality?
Well, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that one. There are, in theory, I would say that what happens in the current IDW comic and Galaxies 2 is kind of a prequel for everything that happens in Siege. So the voice of Ultra Magnus in my story is a little bit more like Ajax in the Trojan War, like the Brad Pitt character in Troy. He's very much a straightforward kind of blunt instrument kind of warrior, very smart, very honorable, but there's not a lot of gray area for him. It's like, you do something wrong, you're going to be punished. You're going to do your time, but you're not getting away with evil. And if you try to kill him, he's going to hurt you really, really bad, if not kill you, which he doesn't usually kill people, but if you push him too hard, he will defend himself. So that's the Ultra Magnus you're going to get in my Galaxy story. And by the end of the arc, I will say this much, that he grows up a little bit in understanding that, again, the world that he's come back to is not the world that he left. And that's a major, major thing for his character changing and then becoming the person you see in Siege.
All right. Awesome. Jeremy, did you have any questions before we wrap things up?
Well, no, I mean, I think a lot of the questions that I would have, you aren't going to be able to answer just because,
Oh, what are your questions?
Well, no, I mean, it was just more just about the comic. We had a pretty well-defined Ultra Magnus for the previous iteration of IDW's continuity. And he was kind of at the start that straight, no holds barred, but very analytical, almost a detective at times. And I just didn't know if any of that was going to come over as well. Just, you said he's smart, but is he kind of tactical or analytical at the situations?
Yeah, you will see that especially in issue 11 of Galaxies, you see a lot of the tactics and little tricks that he pulls out of his sleeve to gain victory over and over again. And like he always has an ace up his sleeve to get out of certain tight situations. He's always thinking ahead. And Ultra Magnus's team in this story includes Chrome Dome and somebody else, which I'm not going to spoil. It's going to be a nice surprise to see in issue 11 who shows up to help to back him.
Cool.
And I'll leave it at that. And I think some people, particularly the hardcore fans, are going to get a kick out of seeing this character pop up in the new IDW continuity.
Nice. Cool.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Brandon, for joining us and talking to us about all your work. Is there anything, any projects you got coming up that you can tell us about, or anything you want to plug before we wrap things up?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned earlier, I just wrapped up my run on Marvel Action Spider-Man. It was originally going to be a 12-issue run, but the pandemic took care of that. So we stopped at issue 3. So it's the Shocker storyline, and that's going to be collected real soon in a trade. But I just wanted folks to know that, if you want the original issues, they're still available. And issue 3 just came out last Wednesday. So if you want to get a hold of that, grab it, because, that's it for that run. I just wrapped up the Judge Dredd series I'm working on called False Witness. The first issue dropped on the last comic book day before the pandemic hit. So people have been sitting with issue 1, which got really good reviews, thank goodness. And those issues will be resuming in August, and that's called Judge Dredd False Witness, which I am the first African-American writer of Judge Dredd in history. So I was pretty happy about that. Star Trek Year 5, we're going to be wrapping up the final issues of that, and that's going to be coming out throughout the end of 2021 and into, the end of 2020 and into the beginning of 2021. So that's some stuff that folks can look forward to. And I got hired to work on another major franchise, but I can't talk about that yet. So there's some good stuff on the horizon coming from me. And if anybody wants to find me, the best place to hit me up is on Twitter at Brandon Easton. I am, I don't spend a whole lot of time on Twitter, but I'd rather communicate with fans and friends that way these days. So feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. And I'm also on Instagram at Brandon Easton Writer. I'm very happy to interact and talk to people on there too. So that's what's going on with me these days.
In that Judge Dredd book, Kei Zama did the art, right?
Yes, she did. Yeah, absolutely. Kei Zama is the artist, and I made sure to put some Mechanismo droids in there for her. Those who know Judge Dredd know about the giant robots in Mega City 1 that have replaced all the dead judges. So street judges, that is. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, Kei Zama, former Death's Head artist and Transformers artist, she is doing some great stuff for False Witness. Issue 1 is already available. You can get it on Amazon or Comixology as a digital download, and the actual issues are in some comic book stores, but it's already hard to find. So keep an eye out for that.
Brandon, thanks again. Thanks so much for joining us. And we'll definitely put all your links to social media in our show notes so everyone can find you on Twitter and Instagram. Mm-hmm. And that'll do it for this episode of Transmissions Alt Mode. And everyone check out War for Cybertron Siege on Netflix. I'm sure if you're watching this, you've probably already watched all 6 episodes. I hope you have. And look for the Transformers Galaxies issues 10, 11, and 12. That's the Ultra Magnus story arc that Brandon has written. And those will be coming up very soon. So, of course, keep listening to the Transmissions Podcast at transmissionspodcast.com. And all our shows are there. All our podcasts are there. All links to all our stuff on YouTube as well. So thanks.
Can I say one more thing before we go?
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
Okay. No, I just wanted to say thank you guys for the work you guys do. I mean, your podcast is fantastic. Please, you guys keep up the good work too. And it's good to have fan voices out there in, pop culture and the media and the podcast spheres, particularly good Transformers discussion. So you guys keep up the good work, and I'll be listening as long as you keep making them.
Awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, that really appreciate that. That's really nice to hear.
That's the truth. Thank you. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, and we'll have to have you back on very soon. And
please, I'd love to talk about Galaxies after it drops. So that'd be fun.
That's our problem. We always get creators when they're like projects have been announced and stuff, and they can't tell us anything.
I have a lot to say about Galaxies, so please bring me back for that one.
Definitely.
All right, definitely. Yep.
Cool.
All right, everyone. Yeah. Thanks again to Brandon, and thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to this episode of Transmissions. But just because this episode is over doesn't mean the Transformers fun has to stop. Join us and other Transformers fans on our Discord chat server by visiting transmissionspodcast.com/discord. If you would like to learn more about how you could support the Transmissions Podcast, just visit transmissionspodcast.com/support. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you again next week.